Okay, so how are you?
I'm pretty good. How about you?
Well, fine, like everybody else, I'm trapped inside.
Trapped. It's such a horrible, horrible thing.
It is, and all this crazy things happening in the world, and especially here in the US.
Yeah,
It's um, I mean, it has been very sad, but at the same time, I think it's a very important time for the state, for the country.
definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely. Yeah. I was speaking about this with some of my friends, and we all acknowledge that this type of brutality has been happening forever. And it's finally reaching a moment where there's momentum for the country to change in a very drastic way, and that's so important.
it is. Yeah. Yeah, so in a way, I think, oh, there is a silver lining because now people are listening,
Yeah,
start listening, and now people feel like, oh, we really have to change.
yeah,
And
definitely.
yeah, really long time. Yeah, um,
Yes, we'll see what happens over the next couple of years, but I have hopes.
yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So, well, I think couple of friends posted on the Facebook solution. They found the video of the premiere performance and they posted it, and they actually made a comment how appropriate the piece is
Yeah.
for this particular time, and so yeah, we should talk about the piece.
Definitely, definitely. So I loved working with you on this piece. I tell everybody that I couldn't have composed this piece without our conversation because you were so honest in sharing your experiences with me, being a woman in a male dominated field and traveling and just not necessarily having the most ideal times as a female performer. So thank you for your honesty. It's not easy, honestly, to be so bold and share your stories, but this is what we need in order for the situation to change in the classical music world. So Solution was definitely composed with you in mind and with the greater situation in mind. How can this world be more inclusive and embrace differences? And what does differences even mean when music should be at the head of our goals as creative artists, right? So, why is there such misogyny and racism and otherism in this field? People talk so much about quality. We should all be focused on the quality of music. Well, yeah, that also means racists and misogynists should be focused on quality. And I know you as a pianist are super, super talented. You never ever put forth a less than quality presentation or performance. So perhaps, yeah, we should focus on quality, and that means everyone involved in this world who produces quality performances.
Exactly. Yeah. I was just reviewing Janakis Inonta, which you modeled for this piece, and I didn't really think the piece had something violent, or I didn't really um, give the piece any kind of extra music or meaning.
Yeah,
After performing your piece, it just felt different. The piece felt different, and I actually watched the video that you posted by Aki Takashi,
oh yeah,
and it looks like that you were just the handheld camera, and
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, oh, is it even allowed?
Yeah, that was a long, long time ago with a very cheap digital camera. I'm surprised that the quality was even worth posting on YouTube, but people seem to enjoy that video that I took. It was during the summer festival in Boston called Sick Puppy. And yeah, that performance was one of those performances that really changed my life. I was familiar with Ionta as a piece, but I had never seen it performed live until that moment because it's such a difficult piece. It's not performed
Yeah,
live very often.
yeah,
And what strikes me most about that piece, at least my reading of it, is that it's a musical expression of this architecture that is complex but just super fascinating. And the way that Xenakis v- incorporates structural representation within his music, that's what fascinates me the most. I always feel like I'm looking at a blueprint or I'm listening to a blueprint when I hear much of his music, not all of his music, but especially Ionta. And so, of course, Solution is a completely different piece than Ionta. But what I used from the Xenakis is this a the focus on the pianist.
mhm,
Um, Ionta isn't considered a piano concerto because the accompaniment is just five brass instruments. But I was working with five percussionists
yeah,
for this piece, so there's that similarity between Ionta and Solution. And then, just like Xenakis, there's choreography within the brass instruments, who also go into the space of the pianist and play their instruments within the piano, and that's to create resonance. So that idea is then translated and also displaced for Solution, mostly for the purposes of creating this narrative, but also as a way to pay homage to Xenakis.
yeah. But I think it worked really well. It was very effective um, as a piece, and really fun experience for me to perform. And I think, I mean, not I think, but all the percussionists, of course, they had so much fun.
Oh yeah, yeah. And it was wonderful seeing them really come out of their shell during the premiere. They were a little bit hesitant
Right.
in the rehearsal, but when it came time to perform the piece, they just gave it their all. And it was such a great experience for me to see not only you and Bob McCormick, but also the percussionists just giving so much of yourselves during this performance. It's everything that a composer can ask for.
Yeah, I thought it's the piece that really requires. I always felt when I performed your piece, I played Fanatic, your the
Yes.
piece, and it really required a performer to be completely into the piece, inside of the piece, and have to just give yourself away completely. That's how I felt. I mean, maybe I should perform more of your pieces, but so far that's how I feel about your piece.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I truly believe that music should be a medium to temporarily leave our current reality and escape into some different world. It doesn't necessarily have to be a utopia or a dystopia. It could just be temporarily leaving our current reality and exploring a different experience. So it's really great for me to hear you say that in Fanatic you are trans transforming your own sense of reality and diving into this world that I'm trying to create in Fanatic and in Solution. That's all that I really want for my performers.
Yeah, and you also play piano. You're performer, and you're a performer as well. You're very active in that, so you probably feel what you just explained, that what you go through when you play, like Schumann or Beethoven, or the, that you actually, the performer experience the transformation, and
Yeah,
you really have that very unique, I think, experience, that you kind of enter different world, or um, different space, but
definitely.
sound. So.
Definitely. I remember as a child, maybe not a child, I was a sophomore in high school, but we had an assignment to write something about a transcendental experience that we've had. And I remember writing a short essay about playing Reflet dans l'eau by Debussy, um, the Image, the first Image of Book One, and how that piece always gets me out of wherever I am at that moment because of its virtuosity, but also its sound world. Debussy has such a wonderful sound world that transports the mind and the soul. So it was just completely appropriate to write about playing that piece and what that piece does for me.
Mhm. Um, well, I mean, transforming, the performer, but also I think the transforming an idea. Um, for example, we had this conversation before the solution was born,
Yeah,
and I'm really um, pleased, and also amazed by how the idea that we talked about transforms to a piece
yeah,
and a sound, and actually piece of art. um, and what we talked about could easily be just kind of um, waving a flag, or could look very much like uh, kind of political propaganda. um, but I thought it came out really beautiful and powerful and very artistic.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I have been creating social justice art for quite some time. And even though I had this natural inclination to create social justice related pieces, it wasn't really until 2017 that I embraced this identity and just put it forth out on the table. And partly it was because I reflected on other social justice related pieces or pieces that were composed in response to certain events. For example, after 9/11 happened, there was just an influx of pieces composed in tribute or in honor or in memory of 9/11. And I don't mean to sound like a horrible person, but I never quite understood how a lot of those pieces were doing 9/11 justice in in as a piece of art. So it was really at that moment in my life where I said, if I'm going to write a piece that comments upon something or is inspired from a situation or some sort of political injustice, I want my audiences to walk away from this experience being impacted, thinking about what they just experienced as a performance and how it relates to the subject matter. But I also want my audiences to have the feeling that the artistic creation is just as important as the political commentary. So I'm constantly trying to balance between artistic quality, but also impact. What is this piece saying? What will this piece do for my audiences? What are the questions that this piece evokes in an audience and for the listener? And how uncomfortable can I make the audience feel in a good way?
Yeah, I think it all reflected in the piece, and also your performance when you came here,
Oh, yeah.
premiere performance. You also gave um, a beautiful performance and talk at the Tampa Museum of Art, and that was really special treat for all of us.
Mm.
And it was really successful. I think it's really spoke to a really wide range of audience, and everybody was very excited. And um, I thought that you really gave something to think about to all these people.
Yeah, that performance was also really special for me. Being a part of that exhibit was such an honor, and those types of performances that I give in the museum, I performed a selection of my set called Zoom In, and that whole set focuses on the story of Black people in the United States. And depending on which pieces I perform in that set, it can be extremely physically exhausting or emotionally exhausting or a combination of both. Um, but I do feel that this set is important in terms of its narrative and its message, but also it's important in terms of the questions that come up. And for me, the Q&A sessions are just as important as the performance itself, because then it gives me a chance to share my research and my insight, not only about the development of the piece, but what the piece all means. And it's a great teaching moment and a wonderful learning moment for me as well as a performing artist.
Yeah, I thought we were very lucky actually that the timing worked out perfectly, that they had the special show of Purvis Young,
Yeah.
and then you came and gave performance and the premiere performance of Solution. So
No, I was lucky, really. It was such an honor,
it's
really.
perfect. Yeah, but I also observed that the from your performance that a lot of um, elements that you were using were also found in the solution from the
Mm.
percussionists, that you actually use your way of performance to um, some elements in the solution.
Yes, definitely. So the the improvisation that I started with in the performance is part of a practice called step dancing. And step dancing evolved from Juba dance, which was a way for enslaved Africans and then Black people in the United States to continue to make music and to continue to celebrate and find some form of optimism. So the step dance that we have today, which is popular in universities and colleges and churches, that is a direct descendant from a practice from Africans who were unjustly brought to the United States. And so it's really important for me to keep up this practice and to share it with as many people as possible and to talk about it. So to have a chance to also notate some of this
Mhm.
and incorporate it in a social justice piece was just another one of these soul affirming opportunities. And I'm really grateful that the percussionists that are in Bob McCormick's ensemble uh, gave it their all and did such a good job with some difficult body percussion and step dance movements.
Yeah, I can share the picture for
Oh,
um, the moment really quickly,
yeah, that would be great.
and you can probably see the
Oh, yeah.
uh, from the premiere performance. This is almost the end of the,
Yeah,
uh, and it really excited the audience at the concert. I think everybody was um, had a really great time. I could see and um, curious about the piece, lot
definitely.
and it's really fun. Um,
Yeah, that was such a good moment with one of the percussionists underneath the piano and Bob McCormick, the conductor, at the piano inside.
he's there.
Yeah, and then you taking power, taking control, and being the solution.
Yeah, it was really great experience. Uh, well, you worked with, I mean, we worked with together and we worked with McCormick Percussion Group, which I believe is probably the most unique percussion group, at least in the United States. Um,
Mm.
how was your experience working with them and director Bob McCormick?
Oh, it was completely 100% positive and welcoming and wonderful. Bob McCormick is such a mover and a shaker when it comes to musical ideas and just being open to so many different things. So it was great to basically say, like, hey, here's a score. It involves not so many percussion instruments, to be honest, but your performers have to wear black and they have to invade the pianist at the end. And he just said, yeah, sure, that's fine. But it goes without saying, and I don't want to make too big of a deal about this. Um, but this is a piece with a highly political element to it. And many conductors would shy away from programming this type of music. And I'm just grateful to have worked with performers and percussionists and a conductor who took a look at this score and said, yeah, I believe in this, and didn't just throw it away, and they weren't afraid. It's this type of fearlessness that will be responsible for making the change that's so desperately needed within the classical music world. So all of my respect and gratitude goes towards Bob McCormick and the percussionists and you for bringing this vision to life.
Thank you. Yeah, that was something that I also learned from Bob McCormick. That's this complete devotion to the music and just having this great mind that you mentioned in the beginning, that the music is actually above everything.
Yeah,
Um, and rest of it is actually could be very trivial.
yeah,
It's not as important as um, music itself, and Bob really shows that with her music making. Um,
yeah,
and of course, for him, it's everybody is the same under the music.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
Um, so it has been really fun also for me to working with this ensemble. because of that, they're so open um, to many different ideas. And actually, I think they get very excited uh, about getting to do things that they haven't done.
Definitely, I can imagine. Yeah, and I love your performance of Matt Barber's Kid Stuff. It's really one of my favorite performances.
Thank you. That was hard.
I
That
can imagine, yeah.
that was hard piece, but that was another piece I think um, um, that Bob really loved, and probably the piece only. I mean, I'm hoping that this piece is the solution, and also kid stuff and other pieces will be performed many more times and by many more different ensembles and pianists. Um, but right now, most of ensemble directors and ensembles they would kind of turn away from um, also maybe I shouldn't say it, but likely from kid stuff or like Janakis because
Yeah,
it's not easy to put together. It requires a lot of work,
yeah.
and I know
And
how much work Bob put into for that piece, and he really trained um, each percussionist and the entire ensemble, and so it was weird dedication, but he really didn't mind. He
yeah,
doing it, and he just loved the piece. So
yeah. He just has such a professionalism about him, and I think some conductors should follow his lead.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah. So with your piece, it was it was very exciting, and yeah, also for me too because um, it's it's not really common. It doesn't always happen for pianists to act even a little bit. And
Yeah,
um, I don't know about other pianists, and of course you're really performing actively, so you're probably more comfortable. But for me, it's still a little bit scary.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't tell that you were a little bit scared. I think you did such an excellent job. So,
I think it's both. It's exciting, and at the same time, it's a little bit scary because we're so used to playing, just
yeah,
playing. Yeah.
yeah.
So, but also that was really cool to get to do something new.
Mm,
But also, I found the piece itself, the music itself, is really great.
mm.
That there's I enjoyed beautiful counterpoint in there,
Yeah.
um, and also the rhythm was really fun.
Mm,
And then how in the very beginning that you have this different motive, and it's definitely their structure. You use them to make the structure. That's um, how I saw and how I felt, and that really also helped me to play the piece.
cool. Yeah. I think a lot about these elements in composition: clarity, structural clarity, rhythmic clarity, but also juxtaposing between rhythmic haziness and structural haziness, and creating these long narratives, both formative narratives, but also thematic narratives. And, you know, as a composer, we are responsible for a left to right journey through time. We create these temporal experiences, and sometimes we have 2 minutes to say something, sometimes we have 18 minutes to say something. And hopefully, when you get a chance to have that time to make your statement, you should make your statement. So I'm glad that I was really given this opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about this different timbre and colors, and I listened to the piece again because Stephen Rice posted, and it
Oh yeah.
listened to it again. Um, but I've also found that there's a really nice balance between the density and also um, simplicity. So it was really nice to hear. There,
Mm.
things you found later.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's hard when you are the performer to remove yourself and listen to the piece. So I'm glad that you went back to listen to it without yourself at the piano working so hard. But yeah, as a composer, I try to learn from my past experiences, and and I don't want to say necessarily the mistakes that I've made in previous pieces, but when you compose and you have performances of your music and you think, well, maybe I could do this, maybe I could do that in my next piece. That all ends up building up, and I'm not young anymore. I'm gonna be
Right.
I'm I'm gonna be 36 in July. So I've had enough experiences for me to reflect upon my past music and try to think about the total sum of an experience before I start notating. Um, and I think one of the biggest things that I've learned just from listening to some of my past music is that audiences, they need moments to breathe. So when I was done with this first movement of Solution, which is this bombardment, it's an onslaught of densities and rhythms and virtuosity, and I knew that after that movement, there had to be some moment for not only the audience, but the performers as well and the conductor to just breathe and just to reflect on what happened. That first movement, it's it's violent, it can bring up some rather harsh emotions. But at the end of the day, those emotions, they should be reflected upon. So it was nice to bring in some of the lessons that I've learned in past movement pieces and to create a new piece for you and for the percussion ensemble that uses these lessons that I've learned.
Cool. What's your next project?
Well, there's quite a bit going on. um, I have been commissioned by a sax duo called Duoctane, and I will compose a piece for them. I don't want to give too much away, but it'll be for sorry, it's not a sax duo, it's a saxophone and percussion duo.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and that will be more of a sonic textural fantasy and reflection and exploration with movement, and with various different instruments, some surprising, and I'm really looking forward to working with them. And then I've been commissioned by two different saxophone duos. One is based in Nebraska, and for them, I will write a piece about a queer experience and what it means to be queer, not only as a person, but as an artist, as a creative artist. And for the other saxophone duo, I'm composing a piece that comments upon the stimulus package that was received in the United States as well as other stimulus packages from around the world are related to this COVID situation. Um, as I said before in this interview, when I'm writing music in response to some situation, I have to examine something. So it's been eye-opening researching how other governments care for their citizens compared to the United States.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, that's all I'll say about that for now. And then I am currently a fellow at the university, the Berlin University of the Arts. And for my fellowship, I'm composing a really large multimedia project that's based on the life of Harriet Jacobs. And she was a formerly enslaved woman in the 1800s. And on her way to escaping to freedom, she lived for 7 years in her grandmother's attic.
uh,
So, incredible story. Her son and her daughter were also put in prison by her slave master in an attempt to get her to come out of hiding. But she stuck to her principles and she lived in this really tiny space for 7 years before escaping on the Maritime Underground Railroad and taking a boat to the north. Um, and what's been the most eye opening about that process, or the research process and the composition process, was just thinking that we here are in our third month of isolation because of coronavirus. But Harriet Jacobs spent 7 years in isolation. So I really shouldn't be complaining. Like I'm in a house with 3 levels. I get to go outside to the supermarket. I don't have to hide from somebody who wants to enslave me, you
right.
know. Um, so yeah, Harriet Jacobs' story is one that people should be learning a little bit more about right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it makes me feel better actually.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I said I'm trapped inside, but yeah, it's right. I mean, I can go and drive around, and I can walk around, and I have house. I'm not in, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not,
yeah,
yeah, direct threat or anything like that.
exactly. And you can have Zoom conversations with composers in different countries.
Yeah, that's right. Well, do you have any I don't know, anything you would like to tell musicians and
Oh,
beyond, that we are, going through such hard time? Of course, there were always hard times in the
yeah.
history in the past, but um, to a lot of people, it seems we are crisis, and um, economically also, and socially, and in a lot of different sense, and also how this pandemic has affected to music business, and
Hmm.
what's happening with the social justice in the United States and probably in the world. um,
Hmm. Yeah. I the thing that I really want to say is that now more than ever, we all need to be doing what we can. And that looks different for everybody. Some people have money that they can use to donate to organizations that desperately need those funds. Some people are in positions where they can volunteer for different organizations. They can share posts on their various different platforms of social media. They can have difficult conversations with friends and family members. You can read about difficult topics like how to be an anti-racist and white fragility, and watch tons and tons of YouTube videos about Black history and Native history and Indigenous history, and even the history of how Asians were treated in this country. It's known that the Japanese were put in internment camps, but it's less known the abuses of Chinese Americans and Korean Americans. And we just have a responsibility right now to do as much as we can to be aware of the various forms of injustice that have been exercised in the United States and in the world, and to try to be citizens that correct this injustice. And that can look differently for everybody, but as long as you're aware of what you can do, then just go ahead and do it.
Great. Yeah. We need to be courage, I think. I feel like, and still hold hope.
Exactly, yeah. And if you want to make it trendy, make it trendy. If that's the way that people are going to do stuff, then do it.
Right.
But
Yeah.
things need to change. So
Yeah. There are some other voices that concern that, oh, it's not just trends, and
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, it's, you know, maybe this is opportunity, and why don't we use it, right?
exactly. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Oh, just thank you, and be sure to buy the album July 10th, Strings and Hammers, Ravello Records.
Thank you.